So he was in the military. So immediately we went back to his base where he was stationed. And my worst fear happened. He went to work and I was alone in the house. And at that point, I had a mental breakdown because I couldn't handle being alone. I was terrified. And I reached a point I developed agoraphobia. I could not leave my house.
For those who don't know, what is
So
agoraphobia?
agoraphobia is a fear of the marketplace. Essentially, it's the fear of going outside of your house, fear of embarrassing yourself or doing something to draw attention to yourself or whatever. And that was all part of it.
So kind of like a fear of any social
Yes,
interaction.
fear of any social interaction, fear of stepping outside of my house. I could not even step out the front door. And at the worst point, I could not even go to the restroom by myself. I would have to wait till your dad, my husband, came home from work for lunch, and then I could go to the restroom. And then I would come back out and sit on the couch. I lost all personal feeling of identity. I had no personal identity. And I transferred all of that at that point onto Norm. And the amazing thing, I still find it very amazing, is as long as I was with Norm, I was normal. We went to church, we went shopping, we went places. As long as I was with him, I could function. But if he was not there, I had no sense of personal identity. So I did not function at all, even in my own house.
I have a couple interesting thoughts there. First, going back even all the way to the start, talking about that, like your mind betraying yourself and feeling like there's complete separation between you and God because you've committed the unpardonable sin or something. I go back to what I said earlier, where it feels like there's a very social aspect to scrupulosity, where if you feel cut off from God, then you can't talk to him, reach to him to see what am I supposed to be doing, because he's not going to answer you, or so your mind tells you. And you don't trust yourself because your mind's betraying you. You have to project that out and take your identity on other people to feel like you have any sort of identity. So that tracks and makes sense to me. Yeah. I can see how that kind of develops there. And then as far as being fine around Dad, the Bible talks very much about Christ being the head of the church, the church being the body, and the church in Christ kind of as the model for marriage. So I can see, because you studied the Bible a lot, reading and rereading and rereading. So I can see there can be some symbology there that would kind of tie back into something that feels safe, structured, modeled after Christ's intentions, that would allow you to place some faith in that relationship a little bit while also having that identity form because you didn't feel like you were feeling God.
And I think there's another aspect of it too, and that was growing up, I heard the verse repeated over and over, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, who can know it? So I learned not to trust myself at all, that I could not trust anything I thought or felt. And so I had to have someone outside of myself. And I talk in my book about many years later, it's actually been maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was at a Bible study with Dr. Diane LeClaire. She's a theologian and a theology professor at Northwest Nazarene University, and she was leading a Bible study, and she was talking about how so a lot of us grew up hearing that pride is the root of all sin, and how if you think about it, you have all these women who have low self-esteem, who have no pride and no self-esteem. And so she developed a thought that maybe idolatry is the root of all sin. So idolatry of self or idolatry of others. So for idolatry of self, a lot of men especially, that tends to be more their sin, where they're very self-sufficient. They don't need anybody. They can do it themselves. They don't need God to save them.
That's that kind of pride manifestation.
That pride manifestation. But for women, we have idolatry of others. So we find our identity, instead of finding our identity in God, we find it in others. And it's only been maybe 6 or 7 years ago that I really came to understand that that is what I was doing. And there was no, oh, I'm an awful person. There was none of that, because this was a skill I learned as a child. I learned to be whoever people expected me to be so that I could stay off the radar and not have conflict. And so I didn't develop a personal identity. And so having someone, again, I mentioned in the book when you were born, so you were my firstborn, I still had agoraphobia.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were born, all of a sudden I could move around my house again. I had another human being there with me, and I had an identity again. And so for much of my life, I did not have a personal identity. It was found in my husband, in my children, in even my grandchildren after they were born. And my healthy identity really has only developed in the last 6 or 7 years. And it has been an incredible transformation for me to become the person I was always meant to be. And it's a lot of hard work and a lot of unlearning that early way of surviving.
Yeah.
And of allowing Christ to build an identity in me and to become who he always created me to be. It's been a wonderful thing to happen.
Yeah.
And I have joy for the first time, in the last 6 or 7 years, and an identity. And I go places now